Hi everyone, welcome to your first video for our new unit. We are reading the novel Things Fall Apart by the author Chinua Achebe. This is your second step. There's actually going to be 3 must-do activities for this first lesson. The first step is to do a background research one-pager. I'm going to assign you a topic to research that's going to look into some of the background historical context of our novel. This video and PowerPoint are actually the second step of your must-do activities. So you'll be taking Cornell notes in your packet. As you watch this video, make sure you have your packet open to those Cornell notes so you can be following along. And then the third must-do will be watching a video of the author, Chinua Achebe, discuss Africa 50 years after this book was published. So that's what we're working on to get started with this unit. There's kind of a lot of historical context for us to understand. We are going from the Crucible, which is, set in Salem, Massachusetts during the witch trials, and now we are going to Nigeria in the 1890s. So we're really switching gears here, and we have to learn about the historical context. So this is our author of the novel, Chinua Achebe. He was born in 1930 in Nigeria. He died pretty recently in 2013. His writing writes about the breakdown of traditional African culture in the face of European colonization in the 1800s. So his goal with his writing, he sought to educate his fellow Nigerians, but also I think just people around the world like us about the Nigerian culture and traditions. The book takes place in the 1890s in Nigeria, like I said. And in the 1890s in Nigeria, the book depicts the confrontation between the Igbo people, that is the ethnic group that this novel is going to be about, and it depicts the confrontation between them and the British who came to colonize. So we know colonization, right, is when a group of people come and settle, they try and take over and establish their own rules and society, and violently take over an indigenous group of people, right? And so what's really important about this novel is that Chinua Achebe gives us this story from the Nigerian Igbo point of view. So this is not from the European point of view, showing us that the Igbo people had an established rich culture and tradition and history. They had a political system, economics, religion. They had all of those things, and they didn't need a European country to come and give them those things or civilize them, right? So this is a really important text that we have from the Nigerian point of view, and that's an important thing for us to understand about this novel. So Chinua Achebe is kind of the first of an author to blend the formal European writing style of the novel with elements of African storytelling. So he did this by using 3 important literary elements. The first is that he incorporates a lot of traditional Nigerian idioms. I gave you an example that you might be familiar with of an idiom. It's raining cats and dogs. We know that that doesn't literally mean that it's raining cats and dogs. It just means that it's raining really hard. But it's a more colorful phrase or saying to convey something outside the literal, right? And so he uses a lot of Nigerian idioms in his writing, and we will talk about some of those as we read Things Fall Apart. He also uses proverbs, which are sayings that can teach us a lesson. So some Nigerian proverbs are going to come up in our novel, and then he also uses folk tales, which are stories that are passed on from generation to generation. A lot of times they have animal characters. So we're going to see some traditional Nigerian folk tales incorporated into the novel as well. And Achebe is a social novelist. He believes in the power of literature in order to create social change. The book takes place in Nigeria, like I've been saying. Here's a map if you were unaware of where Nigeria is on the continent of Africa. The next couple slides are going to give us some information about Igbo society and culture and Nigerian history. So make sure you're jotting down these notes in the packet. I think it's on pages 5 and 6, the Cornell notes. So there is a map of Nigeria, again, close up. And like I said, our text is focused on the Igbo people, which is an ethnic group. It's the third largest ethnic group in Nigeria. And the Igbo people live in the southeastern region of Nigeria. So here's a map. This really small green area is where the Igbo people live. Here's a color-coded map that shows us the European countries that colonized different countries in Africa. So our book is set over here in Nigeria, right? And specifically, the text is focused on the British colonizing this part of Nigeria, but we can also see that France colonized many countries here in Africa as well. Nigeria was a center for the European slave trade, which was a dangerous and lucrative business. It was colonized by Great Britain during the time of imperialism, which is the 18th and 19th centuries. It became an independent colony in 1914 of Great Britain. And the Igbo people are the third most populous ethnic group in Nigeria, like I said. They live in the southeastern part of the country. This part is really important to understanding our novel. The novel is going to talk a lot about the environment. So where they live, it's the tropical rainforests. They deal with rainy seasons and dry winds, and this really impacts the characters in the books because they are subsistence farmers, which means that they raise their own crops, they live off the land, they really rely on the crops that they raise for their food. And these crops are all very important to the Igbo people, especially yams. Yams are seen as the most important crop. So we're going to be reading a lot about yams. Cassava or cassava is a root vegetable similar to a potato or a yam. So these are all things you're going to see in our text. Igbo culture is a patriarchal society. So that means that the decision making is done by men, males only. Men grow yams, which are the more important crop, and then women grow other less important, less significant crops. They live in villages or clans based on male lineage, and women will go and live with their husbands. It is normal, acceptable in the Igbo culture to have multiple wives, 2 or 3 wives, and then each family lives in a compound together, and the wives will have their own huts. This is you're going to see this very quickly in our novel. Our main character, Okonkwo, has multiple wives and they live in their own huts on his compound. So we will see this. We'll also see that there's not a single leader. The village is actually led by elders. There's social mobility that's earned based on your individual achievement. So watch out right away in the first chapter. Our main character, Okonkwo, is going to have a big individual achievement. He's going to climb the ladder a little bit in society. Hospitality is also very important, so welcoming people. There's a lot of rituals around being kind and welcoming to your neighbors. And there's also going to be a lot of specific African or Nigerian Igbo words in this book. Chinua Achebe uses a lot of specific vocabulary words, and so thankfully there's a glossary at the back of your book. An important one to know is obi, which means the hut or the family compound. So as we're reading the book, make sure that you're looking to the glossary in the back because there will be words that you don't know. That's okay. We're going to learn those all together and use the tools that we have to understand our novel. I'm super excited to read Things Fall Apart with all of you, and now that you're done watching this video, make sure you have filled out all of your Cornell notes.